மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. Thank you.
We have seen how the two light pieces are fighting against the rook and the pawn in the endgame. However, in the middle game things are changed, and they are usually changed in favor of the light pieces. Whenever we're having the light pieces in the middle game, we're usually having the better game. The reason for that is that the pieces are having a lot of nice squares, especially the knight, but also the bishop. Plenty of good squares to be placed at, which will both control the center, but also they will defend our position and look into the opponent's camp. So all in all, the middle game positions are in favor of the light pieces. The correct strategy in these cases is to attack on the king side with the pieces. First of all, we are placing them in the center. The example that I chose for you is Capablanca against Alekhine from the World Championship match 1927. Rook d1. Capablanca is attacking the pawn on d5 at once. Then he is bringing the knight in the center. That's an excellent outpost for the knight. From there it can easily switch to the king's flank and to go on f5. Rook e8 was played. At first he is attacking the rook. Rook c to c8. Well, that's a small trap, positional trap to put it this way, but we already know that taking on d5 wouldn't be a good idea for the first place. He's going into an endgame in which the rooks are feeling like fishes in water, so that's not the nice thing to do. And Capablanca, of course, knew this. He played the move e3. He wants to take the pawn on d5 for free. Alekhine needs to find counterplay, because the passive defense of the pawn most likely wouldn't work. There is always a move like d5 and the pawn would be lost for free. So he played queen a4, to which Capablanca took on d5. He's bringing his pieces into the center and he's preparing the decisive attack. After queen d5, rook c2 was played. Capablanca killed all the counterplay in his style with rook d2. Rook takes a2 was what happened in the game. Also queen takes a2 is possible, but then the game will continue in a similar way like the one that we will see in the game. For example, queen d7, and after rook f8, rook takes, and then the knight is coming into the center, then on c6, then eventually on e7, bishop e5, and white is going to create attack against the king side. But back to the game where rook takes a2 was played. White takes on a2, queen takes a2, queen is coming on c6, and already there are a lot of unpleasant threats connected with the back rank. For instance, if the rook goes on d8 trying to be active, white is of course not going to allow this rook to go on the first or on the second rank. He will attack it immediately with bishop c7, and after rook c8 he will keep on attacking it to force some passive defense, say queen e6, to which bishop d8 is very strong, depriving black of the chance to give queen b7 check and threatening checkmate. And little by little, once again, white is going to create attack against this king on g8. This didn't happen because Alekhine defended with rook f8. Now knight d4, intending knight f5 and bishop d6 or bishop e5. And waiting for weakening move. First of all, okay, he will have to work for the weaknesses, as Alekhine is not allowing them. He played king h8, to which bishop e5 is coming. Now the threat is to take on f7. Say black does nothing, bishop takes, followed by knight f5 check, queen f6 and queen g7 checkmate. So black has to be careful, and he has to weaken himself with the move f6. But this makes it easier for the first player to attack. He goes bishop knight to e6 first of all, rook g8. The bishop stands now on d4, and that's the ideal diagonal for the bishop. In the future, white is threatening to take on g7 in a good moment, followed by queen takes f6, so first check on the back rank and then bishop takes f6. That would be the case if black goes queen a5. Here knight g7 is winning on the spot, as king g7 is checkmate, while rook takes g7 is going to be also checkmate like that. typical attacking picture. Also, a move like a5 wouldn't save black to try to push this pawn and to deflect the opponent's pieces. For the same reason, knight can take on g7. This time there is no checkmate, because this check would be answered queen g8. But nevertheless, black cannot save himself after queen takes f6, queen g8, as he is completely paralyzed and the pawn is marching all the way to h6, and black can do nothing. Whenever he plays h5, there is check, followed by bishop takes g7 check with an easy win. So after bishop d4, Alekhine tried h6, but this is once again weakening, this time the white squares. Capablanca is bringing another soldier in the attack. The pawn is heading to the h5 square, and at the same time he is creating the threat of taking on g7. Say that it is white to move in this situation. He will take on g7, and rook takes g7 would be answered queen takes f6, and on this move there will be check on h6 with a win, while if black takes on g7 with the king, there is queen takes f6 check, king h7 check, and rook g6 would be met with h5. That's one of the ideas behind the pawn advance. Also queen d7 is probably mate in this situation, good enough to mate. Note that the immediate taking on g7 in this situation wasn't yet working, as after rook takes g7, queen takes f6, there is the idea queen d5 check followed by queen g5, and then these two passers are by no means worse than the other passers, and black can actually be even better. But h4 is the decisive reinforcement of the position, after which black can do nothing. He played queen b1. Now knight takes g7 is working, as if the rook takes, there is queen takes f6, and if queen h7, then white is simply winning the rook. We have seen this idea before. While if queen e4 check instead of that, then the king can go to g1, and queen b7 can be answered queen takes h6. And okay, this time with 4 versus 2, the game is an easy win for white. The king is in the square of the pawns, so these 4 pawns, they can decide the outcome of the game on the other side all by themselves. The game didn't end like that. After knight takes g7, Alekhine played the desperate queen g6, but okay, basically this is resignation, and the actual one was after h5. Again, trick taking on g7 is not possible, as the queen would be lost. After h5 he played queen f7. Knight is coming on f5. There are so many weaknesses, and this king is so bad that naturally there is nothing for black left on to play. I guess that he was in time trouble, and that's why he didn't want to resign. Queen e4, rook e8, queen f4, queen d8, knight d6, rook e7, and white is taking everything that's left on the board. Okay, obvious desperation. Knight f5 check, king f7, and it was only here that Alekhine resigned. What you need to remember from this sample is that if we are having the light pieces in the middle game, the standard and the best plan is attack against the enemy king.
மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. Thank you.